¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday stream. I hope everyone had an awesome weekend. Welcome. Alio, how's it going? Wolf Glenn, Michael Hauser, welcome, everybody. Alrighty. Alio with a Tier 1 REIT subscription for 28 months. That is way past full 2 years. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, I did see the link. We'll go over that link. This relief has been a long time coming. The lawsuit was first filed in 2019. When the plaintiffs accused former President Trump's education department for failing to process their own borrower defense claims, which are claims borrowers can file if they believe they were defrauded by the school. Since the lawsuit was resolved under Trump, President Biden took it on and agreed to settlement to give borrowers a relief. Well, that's somewhat of good news. We'll definitely take a look at that. First, I think we should probably do a meme story. Maybe. All right. tomorrow. No, the 30th. The 30th. The 1st. May 1st. Wednesday. In 2 days from now. There will be no stream, I think. Yeah, there will be no stream. Yes, March 1st, also known as February 30th. Gotcha. Or February 29th. All right. Let's get some of these headlines started. Well, meme article, or meme story, I should say, first. Alio with another 12 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, meme story. Funny story.
Many in the Republican Party hope. And he hasn't declared yet. Many in the Republican Party hope he soon will.
Former President Donald Trump is once again biting the hand that fed his entire political career, calling out Fox News for promoting Ron DeSantis over him. So I have some examples that may help to bolster his point a little bit. But first here, this is his Truth Social message, which is as ridiculous as you can possibly imagine. Saying here, Fox News is promoting Ron DeSantis.
DeSantis?
So hard and so much that there's not...
Wait, Ron DeSantis? Okay. Trump is very upset at the idea that does not go his way. Yeah, I mean, he just needs to be the center of attention because he's a narcissist.
Much time left for real news, which is capitalized. Okay. Reminds me of 2016.
Yeah, yeah. The reason why Fox News doesn't have time for real news is because of Ron DeSantis. True. Jesus.
When they were pushing Jeb, the new Fox poll, which have always been purposely terrible for me, has Trump crushing DeSanctimonious, but they barely show it. Instead, they go with losers like Karl Rove, Paul Ryan, and now even Jesper, who have been wrong about everything.
I don't know who Jesper is, but wait a minute. He's sticking with Ron DeSanctimonious? Really? That's that's what he's sticking to? Okay. Whatever, dude.
Isn't there a big, beautiful network which wants to do well and make a fortune besides? Did I read that wrong, or is he just not writing this properly?
No, he's not writing it properly because he can't. This is literally Trump trying to fumble through a semi-coherent or an attempt at a coherent thought. And he can't even manage that. Fox News is making a fortune regardless.
Isn't there a big, beautiful network which wants to do well? Well, there's so many comments here. And make a fortune besides? Fake news. I cannot even grasp those last couple sentences there. I don't know what's happening. But Ron DeSantis,
DeSantis.
I don't think that's... I don't even know. I think that was a mistake.
No, it's not.
So he complained about this about Fox News promoting DeSantis and not showing the poll when they have shown that poll several times. So Aaron Rupar sharing the screenshot here from Fox News, Fox Business. Trump at 43%, Ron DeSantis at 28%. There's also a Fox News article about this. Donald Trump at 43, DeSantis at 28.
This is very recent, just a week and a half ago. Donald Trump still has a commanding lead among any Republican challenger. I mean, the closest one would be Ron DeSanctimonious, and even then, it's not even close. Not even close.
That said, here is where we get to where Trump, I think, is maybe accurate for once in his fears here, because the way they title this reminds me a lot of how websites titled polls with Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden in 2020. Fox News poll, Trump DeSantis top 2024 Republican preference. Another way to write that headline is Trump leads the pack by a wide margin. But no, they put Trump and DeSantis in the headline as if they're neck and neck at the top of this poll when they clearly are not. So, as I've discussed many times when it comes to news, a lot of what they do or how they structure, how they want to communicate certain topics is how they frame that topic. Because they realize most people don't actually read past the headline. So headlines mean a hell of a lot. So when you have a headline saying, oh, Trump DeSantis at the top of this poll, it gives the impression that both of them are at the top of the poll when one person clearly is.
Right. Santa is skipping CPAC this year? True.
Now, Trump also went on to share the poll that he complained was not being shared enough, even though, again, it was. But from Rolling Stone here. So sources have told Rolling Stone that Trump has been worried DeSantis is stealing his bit. And in all fairness, the Florida governor has indeed embraced the vindictive style of culture war-based governance elevated by Trump. Florida has become the focal point and experimental sandbox of the GOP's project to reshape institutions. Under DeSantis' governance, the state has implemented a series of laws and policies to codify LGBTQ discrimination, severely restrict efforts to educate on racial and cultural diversity, radically reshape public education, and punish corporations and institutions who dare to speak out against the radical shifts in Florida's government. Despite Trump's rekindled ire towards Fox News, the network released a poll on Sunday showing Trump, as I said, beating DeSantis. So this is, all of this is disturbing in its own right. When it comes to DeSantis and what he's doing in Florida, I have covered a lot of that, but I just don't think it's going to matter when it comes to the actual Republican voters. I mean, this stuff does matter. This is why DeSantis is even competing in the poll. But if DeSantis actually announces, and there's actually a bit of a political fight between Trump and DeSantis will lose simply because
It seems that way. It certainly seems that way, and it certainly felt that way before in the beginning. I guess a more leveled way of looking at it would be if DeSantis decides to announce, then we will see. Paul Ryan told local news outlets that he would only attend the 2024 nominating convention if the party voters nominate someone other than Trump. It depends on who the nominee is. I'll be there if it's somebody not named Trump. I'm not interested in participating in that, even in Wisconsin where the event will be held. That's hilarious. I mean, it's your monster, GOP. So I don't know what's the problem. They're the ones that opened Pandora's box, so now here we are.
Does not have the charisma that Donald Trump does. And
Oh yeah, like I
Republican
was saying,
voters respond
I want to know what the actual like numbers will look like when he officially announces, if that makes sense. When he officially announces, if he does, in the hypothetical scenario where Ron DeSanctimonious decides to announce, I definitely want to see the polls after that.
to emotion, to feeling. They want to support the alpha in the room. So unless DeSantis goes even more over the top and really hits Trump directly and hard and does it over and over and over again and essentially emasculates him, that is the only way DeSantis has any shot at all in this primary. If he's unable to do what Trump does but better, then he has no hope. And you're already seeing, Trump's visit to East Palestine, Ohio, over the train derailment. He's doing that as a way to position himself to be, the working class hero, which is ridiculous, but this is how he's positioning himself, to be the working class hero of these Republican voters, as opposed to DeSantis, who is out, doing whatever he's doing in Florida, but also out in other states talking to police about crime and all this garbage.
Yeah. That was a good meme. Screw DeSantis. True. Luckily, it seems like Trump, I know this sounds weird, but it seems like Trump has enough of an edge to win the nomination. Which, if he does, I believe he's going to lose the general election. It'll be a close one, but I think Trump will lose the general election. He's just not the same. He's got his core base, and that's about it. That hasn't really shifted much. But he doesn't have, in my opinion, he doesn't have what it takes to win the general election. Ultimately.
Trump, I think, better understands the base, better understands how to play them the way that DeSantis doesn't. Again, he does in terms of some culture war issues, as you see here, but not to the degree that Trump does, and the way that Trump speaks, the comedy that he injects, the right-wing comedy he injects in his speeches and all that. It's that's what appeals to voters, and DeSantis simply does not have that charisma.
I think the ghost fucked my husband.
I'm sorry,
Oi.
what?
To give you some examples of the woke, as you're going to see, of how Fox News has recently been pushing DeSantis a little more. Here is a interview that they just did. DeSantis apparently has a book coming out, so he's going to be in the headlines a little more, or at least in media appearances a little more this week. But check this out.
And yes, you do have to fight the woke in the halls of government and in legislative chambers.
The
and we have
woke.
super majorities as Republicans in Florida, so we will win all those fights. But you also have to be willing to defend your folks against this agenda being shoved down their throat from all these other institutions where these people aren't necessarily coming up for election. So you talk about things with like the young kids and with Disney.
Okay. It's all just, again, I call it culture war bullshit because they have made just basic.
Yeah, like also, there's no policy most of the time. And whenever there is policy, it just seems like super authoritarian. Even in Ohio, his voice was faltering, and Trump finally being told he was not being charming enough. I don't know. I think Trump will win the primary anyways.
Human rights, basic education into a culture war, when it is not. It's about human rights. It's about human decency, treating trans people as people, treat people with respect. when it comes to education, all the books now being taken off the shelves out of the fear that some of these schools, some of these districts may face repercussions for having books on the shelf that may mention, race issues or LGBTQ issues. So they're pulling a lot of books off the shelf because of that. It is, having a incredibly negative impact on people living in Florida. And he's doing it all for attention, to try and maintain the support base within the party in an attempt to, at some point, if not this time, the next time, run for president. Here is another example.
I mean, like, if DeSantis decides to wait and run the next election cycle, that's when it gets that's when it starts getting a little scary. That's when it starts getting a little scary, because there he might actually have a chance. He might actually have a shot.
This is just basically Jeb Bush here appears to be endorsing Ron DeSantis, even though DeSantis has not announced. But check out this softball interview here.
I think Governor DeSantis would say, as he told me once, I'm a better hitter.
They were going to hit
Please clap.
Governor
Oh, my God.
DeSantis
Yeah.
on how he's only giving the vaccine to people that voted for him. What did you think of that?
They were trying to set him up, and he knew it, and he punched him in the nose.
How would you say?
Okay, hold up. The DeSantis did actually do that. When the vaccine first arrived, it first arrived in wealthy districts that backed him. This is a fact. So I'm not sure what the punching in the nose is referring to, but the actual facts are on the side of people criticizing DeSantis over that. But then, at the same time, he's also trying to grab the anti-vax base. So it's a really, bizarre amalgamation of issues and topics here, and varying positions on all sides to try to appeal to a variety of people. But ultimately, he's really trying to speak DeSantis to the Republican base. Yet, Jeb Bush, I don't know if Jeb Bush is the guy you want to have in your corner, considering what Trump did to him in 2016. I don't think the
Forever immortalized.
Please clap.
the Republican base has positive feelings towards Jeb Bush. So this may be an appearance that DeSantis doesn't actually want. Let me see if there's anything else worth listening to in this interview.
And he hasn't declared yet. Many in the Republican Party hope he soon will. Is this Ron DeSantis' opportunity to run for higher office?
I think it is. He's been a really effective governor.
What else is here? Last thing. Here's how Fox News has recently criticized Trump over the deregulation when it comes to derailments.
So wait a minute. Fox News is putting out these are opinion pieces. These are not journalists. This is entertainment for all intents and purposes. But they're pointing out the opinion that now they're of the opinion that they're complaining about regulations, that there wasn't enough regulations. The problem here is that conservative Republican policy, or what's that? What's the name? Not policy. Platform. There we go. Republican platform for decades has been deregulation. In fact, in many occasions, they celebrated this idea that they're eliminating regulation, that they're eliminating red tape or whatever. They celebrate that fact. And now you're going to have to square that circle for people, saying that now actually, well, we need regulations.
check this out.
during the Trump administration, apparently, even when there were derailments, Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao never visited the sites. But what is different about that and this is, well, people just don't trust the government tests because they go, well, it's okay to trust, you can drink the water, you can breathe the air. People don't trust the tests. And so by virtue of government officials showing up, breathing the air, drinking the water, then it looks better. But for them to say, look, they didn't do it at that time, it's just one of those things.
But there was nothing that equated.
There's
nothing that equated to this during the Trump administration. And one thing about Donald Trump, and there were toxic gases that poisoned the town.
There were some fatality derailments where people lost their lives during the Trump administration. Nobody lost their life during this.
Right, but
So, it's weird to see Ducey kind of on both sides within the same minute. On one hand, he's saying, Elaine Chao didn't show up, but it's different because now there's poison gas.
Get an early look at ads versus to control content on social media. What? What does this have to do with the topic at hand? Are you okay? What does this have to do with the topic at hand? What does this have to do with ads? We're doing a story. Oh, you're replying to somebody else? Okay.
Gas in the air, but then he goes on at the end to say, well, people died in these derailments under Elaine Chao, and they didn't die here. There's no real consistency here. But regardless, they are pointing out how, Trump's administration didn't show up to these derailments. Also, another video that we covered on the Leftist Mafia, Brian Kilmeade discussing how he's surprised at the lack of regulation on the rail industry, which, bro, the Republican Party, it's all about deregulation.
Right, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, the Republican Party can't simultaneously be, like, surprised Pikachu face that, like, deregulation led to, like, this lack of, like, safety, where otherwise, at the very least, there would be some more, like, safety fallbacks, at least. The Republican Party they shouldn't just be surprised Pikachu face. This is what they wanted. Right? With all this talk about like cutting red tape and deregulating and whatnot, they should be perfectly fine. This is an outcome that they accept that is possible. They should own it.
That's all it's.
Because now, like I said, you have a conundrum. You have to explain to your to your base that now all of a sudden, go backpedaling on decades of having a platform that's based on deregulation, now going completely 180 on that. You're gonna have to square that circle.
It's about that and money for the wealthy. So to complain about this is just to criticize the entire party you're supporting. But I don't know. It does appear that there is a sort of a new directive, which I imagine is coming down from Murdoch, to push DeSantis up a little more over Donald Trump. And I do think you're going to continue seeing that. You're going to see that, as I showed you, through how the headlines are framed, even if Trump is leading in a poll, and also how these stories are discussed and how much DeSantis is going to appear on Fox News going into the future. Again, assuming he announces, which it appears with his new book release, with everything he's doing in Florida, that he is planning to announce his run at some point.
I mean, he might not announce, or if he does announce, given the fact that he has like a book coming, it might just be for that reason. Like, he's not intending to actually win, because let's be honest, he won't. But it would give him a national platform to show his garbage. Perhaps. Or perhaps he won't announce and do that next election cycle. Who knows? At the very least, if he announces this election cycle, he's not going to win. I can guarantee that. Almost. Alright. So, to kind of piggyback off that, Florida Governor DeSantis ends corporate kingdom of Walt Disney. Florida Governor DeSantis signed a bill on Monday, today, that takes control of a special tax district surrounding Disney for more than half a century, which allowed Disney to operate with a high degree of autonomy. The corporate kingdom finally comes to an end. The state Republicans last year targeted Disney after it publicly clashed with DeSantis. Like, never mind about the idea of, like, the problems with having what effectively is a company town. No. The problem is that they disagreed with this. They disagreed with the dear leader, DeSantis. And since he's an authoritarian fuck, he decided that he's gonna come down on them, not because it's obviously like a bad like deal to have like a company town and all the problems that come with it, but the reason why he decided to come down on them is because they publicly disagreed. Mind you, Disney was also a super mega donor to the Republican Party. So, yeah. Cool. After publicly clashed with DeSantis, who's widely considered to be running for president, yeah, like they keep pushing this idea, but he hasn't announced yet. That's also very interesting. Over a law that restricts classroom instruction of gender and sexual orientation, known by its opponents as the Don't Say Gay measure. In March, Disney's then chief executive officer, Bob Chapek, whatever, publicly voiced disappointment with the bill limiting LGBTQ discussions in schools, saying saying he called DeSantis to express concern about legislation becoming law. That was it. That was the big cardinal sin. Is that you cannot go against the dear leader. That's a huge no-no. Not good. Can't do that. In a move political observers viewed as retaliation for the for Disney's view on the Don't Say Gay measure, Florida lawmakers passed a bill this month which DeSantis signed into law that authorizes the governor to appoint 5 supervisors to oversee traditional municipal services such as fire protection, public utilities, waste collection, and road maintenance in the region where Disney operates. The quasi-government entity also has the authority to raise revenue to pay outstanding debt and cover costs of service. We have a situation here that was basically indefensible from a policy perspective. DeSantis says, how can you give one theme park its own government and then treat all the other theme parks differently? We believe that was not a good policy. Now, you're just big mad. That's all. You're just big mad. Big mad. A spokesperson for Disney did not immediately respond for a request to comment. It wasn't even like they did anything. They just like strongly disagreed with this one thing. And DeSantis is like, yep, nope. Gotta come really hard down them because they disagreed with the dear leader. Speakers at the bill signing ceremony included a parent who criticized Disney for speaking out against the state education bill, saying the company chose the wrong side of the moral argument. By voicing an opinion? Okay. Another person who identified himself as longtime Disney park employee took issue with the company's policies regarding vaccinations. Disney World is the largest employer in Central Florida with close to 75,000 employees and drew 36.2 million visitors in 2021. Disney shares? Okay, I don't really give a shit. Cool. Nice meme. except for CPAC, you're getting the headlines for DeSantis, meaning there's going to be more. Yeah, of course, he's promoting a book. They'll probably 7 times the weekly daily headlines till they drop out. Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, like, DeSantis hasn't even announced. So, like, maybe until, like, they make a final decision. But yeah. Alio with the 11 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. Let's see. Oh, here's an interesting one. Before we get to the other news, I'm slowing down now, but Trump has dominated headlines since 2015. Who knows? Well, it depends. Hopefully, if he loses this election, the ideal scenario is that if he loses this election, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. About as much as we'll need to pay attention to him. I mean, like, if he loses twice, then that's it, right? He can't run for president.
Footage from the United States Capitol. I'm excited for Speaker McCarthy. He's agreed to release all of the January 6th footage from the United States Capitol. We are not letting this issue die. We are not running from it. We are going to expose the truth of January 6th, and we will prevail until we see justice for the January 6th political prisoners.
No, the word you're looking for there is domestic terrorists. Insurrectionists would be the word. And also, I have a question. Why did Kevin McCarthy give exclusive access to the supposedly he gave exclusive access to Tucker Carlson first? If this was truly about transparency, if this was truly about, you know, exposing what actually really happened, why did Kevin McCarthy give exclusive viewing rights first to a known far-right propagandist? The answer is because it's not actually about the truth. It's not about the truth. It's about attempting to spin a narrative because it has to be that bad. If you feel the need to give this footage exclusively to Tucker Carlson to massage, then it must be bad. Hey James Napper, how's it going? It's a strange situation with DeSantis and Disney because on one hand he's being petty and exerting unpopular policy despite being traditionally free market. Right, because he doesn't really they don't actually believe in that. They don't actually believe in that. Because you'll see time and time again when it actually comes to the free market, they don't actually believe in that. On the other hand, the person running against him was basically trying to talk up Disney as a counter-argument, which is supposed to be a Democrat. Yeah, well, Democrats aren't exactly... Democrats aren't always your friend, you know? That's the problem with thinking that, like, just because they're on the same party, or just because they're on a party opposite, meaning that means they're good. No, the Democrats, the Democrats can be garbage too. Disney doesn't need anybody defending them because they are big and bad enough to do it themselves. Like when they deny people unionization or paid leave. True. Gale0966, thank you for the follow. Pedigree, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that.
That are still in jail.
Yeah, my favorite part is like they're all clapping. Yeah, no, they're insurrectionists, not political prisoners. Okay, they're not in jail because they're of opposing political parties. They're not being investigated solely because they're like on the opposite side. They're being investigated, arrested, prosecuted, convicted because they did crimes. As we saw, there's already been not only guilty admissions, but guilty verdicts of sedition, and more on the way. So yeah, no, this is not anything to do with these insurrectionists being on the opposite political party. Okay, it's ridiculous. All right. Switching gears really quickly. The Supreme Court will hear case challenging this Consumer Finance Protection Bureau funding. This is definitely one of the cases to watch. The Supreme Court on Monday agreed to hear arguments in a case challenging the constitutionality of funding for the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. The order taking the case came 4 months after a federal appeals court panel unanimously ruled that the CFPB's funding mechanism was unconstitutional. That ruling, which tossed out a CFPB regulation targeting payday lenders, had called into question every order and other action issued by the consumer watchdog in its history, the Biden administration has said. This included in those actions is a recent record $1.7 billion civil fine, in addition to $2 billion in mandated customer reimbursement imposed on the agency by the agency on Wells Fargo for abuses related to customer accounts. Let me get this straight. So they're trying to argue that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau attempted to do its job by protecting consumers from this predatory bank, which committed massive fraud across the board, where it was found that they were encouraging employees to do all kinds of shenanigans, signing up people for accounts, so on and so forth, to the point where the CFPB had to step in and fine them almost $2 billion. That's what's being contested here? Okay. The The CFPB, which was created by the Dodd-Frank Act on the heels of the 2008 financial crisis, is funded by the Federal Reserve, not Congress. Wait, the government cannot stop banks from breaking the law? Apparently, the mechanism as to which the way this happened apparently is not okay. And apparently the mechanism as to how this this agency or regulatory body even exists is being called into question. Which is wild to me. That funding choice was adopted by a Democratic-controlled Congress to help safeguard the CFPB from political pressure. Republicans have expressed opposition to the existence of the agency. Of course, you see, you can't in one breath. This is what gets me. You can't in one breath be so against regulations to clearly predatory institutions, and on the other breath, surprise Pikachu face when regulations, at the very least, could have helped. In the case of the Ohio incident. Right. Yeah, they're incredibly predatory. Republicans have expressed opposition to the existence of the agency which oversees consumer markets such as credit cards and home mortgages. In its ruling in October, a three-panel judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit said the funding mechanism violated the Constitution and that the agency's funding instead should be appropriated by Congress from the U.S. Treasury. The Bureau's funding scheme is unique across the myriad of independent executive agencies across the federal government. The panel noted ruling written by Judge Corey Wilson, it's not funded with periodic congressional appropriations. The Biden administration has asked the High Court to hear its appeal of the ruling, which the court agreed to do on Monday. But a lawyer for the two payday lending advocacy groups that are plaintiffs in this case said the court's decision to hear the dispute reflects the importance of separation of powers at issues at stake in this case. Well, no. The issue is that your payday loans, your payday lending institutions, you're predatory by definition, and you benefit from the ability to then be able to lobby and influence Congress to, let's say, eliminate the CFPB. That's what's going on here. Make no mistake about it. That's what's going on here. The predatory payday loans are effectively trying to make a scenario where they could influence politicians to eliminate that regulatory body. Sweden official, how's it going? If the Supreme Court follows more than a century of law and historical precedent, it will strike down the Fifth Court decision before it throws out our financial markets and economy into chaos. Oh, hold on, sorry. Okay, anyways. The Supreme Court will also hear arguments in the case during its next term, which starts October, not during the current term as the Biden administration has requested. That means a final decision could be delayed until June of 2024. Senator Elizabeth Warren, who first proposed the creation of the CFPB, said despite years of desperate attacks from Republicans and corporate lobbyists, the constitutionality of the CFPB and its funding structure have been upheld time and time again. Okay, but I skipped this part. Yeah. Yeah, but a lawyer, blah blah. So we demonstrated the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is held. The CFPB's self-funding mechanism lacks any contemporary or historical precedent. It properly shields the agency from congressional oversight and accountability, and unconstitutionally strips Congress of its power of the purse under the appropriate... But no, it was given to them. It was formed by the legislative body. So I don't know how it could violate that. Said attorney Christian Vigonis, the law firms of the law firm Jones Day. Vigonis said that his clients, the Community Financial Services Association of American Consumer Alliance of Texas, look forward to presenting these arguments to the Supreme Court. The private government watchdog group Accountable U.S., in a statement, called the lawsuit by the payday plaintiffs baseless and said the crown jewel in a long-running, highly organized effort by greedy industries and right-wing politicians in their pocket to take out the CFPB because it works so well to protect consumers from abuse. Right, the reason why we needed this regulatory body in the first place was because of these predatory loans. That's how we got here anyways. To begin with, I should say. It's apt that predatory lenders are leading this latest assault, as no industry has bigger axe to grind against the CFPB after facing numerous fines for mistreating consumers, said Liz Selnick, Accountable, the U.S. Director of Economic Security and Corporate Power. The Supreme Court, in a 2020 ruling, allowed the CFPB to continue operating, but also said that a provision of the law that created the agency was unconstitutional because it violated the separation of power rules. That provision has said the director of the CFPB could be removed from that position only for cause. The court, in its 5-4 ruling this year, said that the director must be removed by the will of the president for any reason. Since its creation in 2010, the CFPB has recovered more than $15 billion for consumers. Yeah, which is the problem for these predatory lending institutions. Hopefully, the CFPB remains intact, and the Supreme Court will allow it to continue. Alright guys, give me 1 second. Sorry about that, folks. All right. So I guess we can kind of switch gears over here. A federal judge just ruled $6 billion in student debt cancellation can move forward for 200,000 defrauded borrowers, saying the decision will also not only them to not only move on but also to move up, elevating others in the process. All right. Thousands of student loan borrowers are finally moving forward with long-awaited debt relief. On Friday evening, a federal judge, William Alsop, ruled that a settlement he had already approved last year resulting from a lawsuit, Sweet versus Cardona, can move forward, which would give 200,000 borrowers defrauded by schools they attended $6 billion in debt relief. That relief has been a long time coming. The lawsuit was first filed in 2019 when the plaintiffs accused former President Trump's education department of failing to process their borrowers' defense claims, which are claims borrowers can file if they believe they were defrauded by their school. Since that lawsuit hasn't been resolved under Trump, President Biden took it on and agreed to a settlement to give borrowers relief. However, two for-profit companies, the Lincoln Education Service Group and American National University at Everglades College, a nonprofit, filed notice to appeal Alsop's decision in January to pause the relief because they argued that they did not have sufficient time to push back against being included in the settlement. Alsop rejected this request on Friday. The settlement breaks a logjam that has vexed several secretaries and allows the department to redirect resources to other initiatives, and it gives plaintiffs who have languished in borrower defense application limbo the long-awaited relief. Note the relief provided by the settlement, financial and otherwise, will allow the plaintiffs to breathe easier, sleep easier, repair their credit scores, take new jobs, enroll in education programs, and finish their degrees, get married, start families, and provide for their children, finance houses and vehicles, and save for retirement. It will allow them to not only move on, but move up, elevating others in the process. As Alsop was reviewing whether to pause this relief, the plaintiffs in the case filed in opposition to the request, writing that borrowers would be severely harmed if the relief keeps getting delayed. They have already waited years for the resolution of their borrowers' applications, some of which have been pending since 2015. The loans that would be discharged under settlement continue to shadow them, affecting their credit, livelihood, mental health, and countless other aspects of their lives. 144 borrowers have submitted declarations attesting to the harm a stay that would cause them. Along with the automatic relief for 200,000 borrowers, the settlement also allows for a streamlined review of another 64,000 borrowers' defense applications. Eileen Connor, president of the director of the Project on Predatory Student Lending, the company that represented the plaintiffs, wrote in a statement that Alsop's Friday's decision delivers a massive long overdue victory for our clients and validates the fact that the settlement is on solid legal ground. Now, hundreds of thousands of people and family who have been held hostage by the borrower defense process for so long will finally receive a fair resolution and the justice they are owed. Cool. I mean, lowercase w, but that's nice. This is the kind of stuff that, could be incredibly useful to have a regulatory body like the CFPB. Hey, Cosmic Seekin, how's it going? Hope you're well. I'm hanging in there. Alright, so to switch gears, or I should say to piggyback off that, A federal judge... Oh, wait, no. Wrong one. Shoot. All right. Here we are. I hope the first link helped. Yeah, we got a story out of it. Thank you. I just lived through an epic day for the UK. Cool. I don't know what that means. The Biden administration's plan to cancel $20,000 in federal student loans for millions of Americans will come under scrutiny by the Supreme Court on Tuesday, tomorrow, facing a crucial test. Hey. From a conservative court that has been wary of broad claims of executive power. So just to be clear, the plan to cancel to 20,000, it's 10,000 for regular, I think, federal loans. But if you have Pell Grants, then it's 20,000. So just to be clear, this isn't explaining it very well. This is not explaining it very well, but it's not 20,000 across the board. I hope you feel good if Biden gets to cancel those loans. I mean, it's better than nothing. I just think that, like, the action here isn't enough. The action here isn't addressing the original problem here, which is well, why are we not moving to a more universal, like, education system? Why are we in this problem to begin with? Once the Supreme Court comes down with the decision, comes down with the verdict, all loan repayments, which is now on hold, will start after 2 months. After even 2 months. Gotcha. After even 2 months, right. This will unshackle some educated people who do good. Yeah, like I said, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it's addressing the problem the wrong way. It's not really addressing the root of the problem. The problem is that we have student loan to begin with. That's the issue. And this isn't really going to fix it. I know this since I owe for my daughter. Sheesh. Yikes. This program that was unveiled in August satisfies a campaign promise from President Biden and would provide relief to more than 40 million borrowers, 20 million of which would have their loans wiped out altogether. But with a cost of roughly $400 billion, a group of 6 states and 2 boroughs from Texas are pushing the Supreme Court to invalidate the program and argue that Biden administration is unlawfully invoking the COVID-19 pandemic to claim breathtaking and transformative power, according to the court filings. That's rich. That's rich coming from Republicans. I could say the same thing about how Republicans used the pandemic to attempt to keep Title 42 with regards to immigration, while simultaneously also saying that the pandemic isn't a problem, let it rip. Well, it might be a game changer for some people. I'm arguing that this shouldn't be a problem to begin with. There shouldn't be a reason why we're reading headlines about student debt. There shouldn't be a reason why student debt is like one of the most like largest sources of debt. Arguments for the pair of cases to be heard by the justices on Tuesday. Tomorrow are the culmination of political and constitutional clashes that have left millions of borrowers in limbo. The Department of Education in November stopped accepting applications to the program, and loan service providers are prevented from discharging any debt as a result of the legal challenges. At least it reaches back into the past and rights some wrongs. I don't know how that does it. The court is set to consider 2 questions when it convenes for the arguments. First, whether the states and borrowers have the legal right to challenge the program, a concept known as standing. And whether the... Oh man, I love this article. The court is set to consider 2 questions, whether they're standing... And whether the Biden administration exceeds its authority with its plan to eliminate $430 billion in student debt, in federal student debt. Mind you, this is federal student debt as well. Key to whether the justice even weighed the lawfulness of the program is whether the Biden administration can persuade a majority of the court that neither the GOP-led states nor the 2 borrowers, Myra Brown and Alexander Taylor, have the legal standing to sue. Going back decades, the Supreme Court has been very clear on its rules for what plaintiff needs to bring a case, needs to be able to bring a case in court, said David Namias, a state staff attorney with the Berkeley Center for Consumer Law and Economic Justice. The center filed a brief on behalf of the Missouri consumer advocates in support of the Biden administration, arguing that state-threatened harms are speculative. The court has made it very clear that you need a concrete harm, a concrete injury that is not abstract or hypothetical. It is an actual harm or imminent harm, and they've made that very clear time and time again in their decisions. Right. Could it buy some votes for Biden and the Dems? Maybe. Maybe. It gave like a small boost of favorability when it was announced, but again, the issue is, well, what else can you do? Why is it only like federal? And why only 10,000? $20,000 if you have Pell Grants. In the case brought by 6 states, Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, South Carolina, federal district court in St. Louis dismissed the case for lack of standing, but a federal appeals court blocked the debt relief program, finding that Missouri is harmed from financial loss that the cancellation inflicts. The appeals court focused its decision on the Higher Education Loan Authority of the state of Missouri, or the MOELA, as we called it, a state-created entity that services federal student loans, finding that financial impact on the loan servicer due to the debt discharge threatened the financial harm to Missouri. I mean, like, quite frankly, I don't really give a shit. There shouldn't be a reason why I'm reading about the harm to a loan servicer. I don't care. Student debt shouldn't be a thing. I know Ayanna Pressley, who's federal, said in public meetings the GOP wants to eliminate many programs and kill aid, so I'll keep pushing. Okay. In papers filed with the Supreme Court, Missouri argues that the student debt relief program will inflict substantial financial harm on MOELA and therefore injure the state, while the other state claims that they will lose tax revenue as a result of the program. For the second case from Texas brought by Brown and Taylor, a federal district court found that its borrowers satisfied the requirement for standing and ruled the plan is an unconstitutional exercise of Congress's legislative power. A federal appeals court declined to reinstate this program. Brown does not qualify for debt relief as her loans are held by commercial entities, and Taylor is eligible for $10,000 in loan forgiveness. The borrowers claimed the education secretary improperly promulgated the plan without notice and comment process, depriving them of the opportunity to comment on the program. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar, who argue on behalf of the Department of Education, told the Supreme Court that any harm to the states is self-inflicted, and their theory of decreased tax revenue is unduly speculative. With regards to Missouri and MOELA, the two are legally separated entities. The states asserting standing based on injuries that are highly speculative, they have inflicted upon themselves or fall upon a third party that is stranger to this litigation. She said, and private respondents purport to assert that the plan injures them because it provides too little debt relief, but seek a remedy that would result in no debt relief at all. The court should reject those convoluted theories. Naimas noted that the Supreme Court only needed to find that one of the plan's challengers has legal standing in order to reach the larger question of whether the Biden administration has authority to cancel student debt. But states don't just have a right to bring this case. Specifically in the case of Missouri, their case is far too speculative to reach the requirement for Article 3 standing that the Supreme Court has set out. It relies on a very weak chain of events that's just not enough. It's too attenuated to establish standing. In a friend of the court brief filed with the court, law professor Samuel Bray of Notre Dame Law School and William Bott of University of Chicago of Law argue that while they believe the student loan forgiveness program is unlawful, the standing theories put forth the cases are wrong. Even if the executive branch has exceeded its authority under Article 2, that does not permit the judicial branch to cede its authority under Article 3. They wrote, warning that accepting the theories from standing from these states would invite it to weigh in on future partisan disputes over actions by federal agencies. Unless this court wishes to sit in on future partisan disputes over actions by federal agencies, unless this court wishes to sit in constant judgment of every major executive action, which is not its constitutional role, it's time to say stop. Mr. Biden's program would cancel up to $10,000 in federal aid for Americans earning less than $125,000 annually, and an additional $10,000 for those recipients of Pell Grants, which are awarded to students with the greatest financial need. In less than 4 weeks that the application was available, more than 26.2 million people applied, and over 16 million of those applications were approved by the Department of Education. According to the White House, the Trump administration, followed by the Biden administration, paused federal student loan payments during COVID, with the most recent extension running through June. The Department of Education said its legal authority for the student debt cancellation rests on a 2003 law that authorizes the Education Secretary to waive or modify student financial assistance programs for borrowers in connection with a war, military operation, or a national emergency such as the pandemic. Yep. Hey, it's the Morton. How's it going? Welcome. But the state and borrowers told the court that the HEROES Act doesn't authorize this program. It is implausible that Congress authorized the Secretary to engage in one of the department's most costly actions ever, $500 billion loan cancellation program without any rulemaking procedure. Before announcing his student loan initiative, Mr. Biden faced pressure for some Democrats in Congress and activists to take action to help more than 43 million borrowers with outstanding federal loan debt totaling $1.6 trillion. For Dan Stokes, 32, the debt relief available through the program, if it stands, would give him the freedom to change careers and save up money to buy a house. Stokes, who will join a rally outside the Supreme Court hosted by advocacy organizations, has $42,000 in student loan debt after attending a liberal arts college near Roanoke, Virginia, and transferring to Virginia Commonwealth University, for which he graduated with a Bachelor in Arts degree of International Studies and African American Studies in 2013. A special education teacher, Stokes is eligible for $20,000 in debt relief under the Biden administration plan, and is also working to have the rest of his debt erased under Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which forgives the remaining balance on loans after a borrower makes up to 120 qualifying payments. I'm good. That's good to hear. I worked in this industry on good faith that it provided quality instruction. I would be recognized. Stokes, whose loan is serviced by Moella, told CBS News, "It's going to set me back from home ownership, and it's a situation where I feel like I have to put that on pause." Yeah, it's some BS. Stokes says while he enjoys working with his students, he feels underpaid and burnout, and his monthly loan payment, though currently on hold, leaves him with little money to put away to move closer to his goal of home ownership. Yeah, okay. "It's setting me back from building wealth for myself and purchasing a home," he said, adding that the program really helps people to have that type of peace of mind. A decision for the Supreme Court is expected this summer. Well, we'll see. All right.
Meet 3 people who took control of their money with a Chase Secure Banking.
I don't give a shit about Chase.
Natasha Denona. And here he is discussing what else trans people with this Russian satirist, Konstantin Kaizen, I guess is his name. And this is Peterson's latest fixation. And let's hear what he has to say.
We've just interviewed somebody about this, a woman who transitioned her child and regretted it. And we'll be putting that out very shortly.
Oh, okay. Can you pause it? Because transitions, we've gone over this data multiple times on this program. There is a small percentage of people that do detransition. It's a very small percentage. What's the number? Something like
under 10%.
Under 10%, single digits. Depends on the study. And there are a lot of those, which isn't as covered in that figure, that transition back.
Yeah, and I would also add the reason for the lack of transition. All these freaks would have you imply that they've been they've woken up from the mind virus that's infiltrated them, but it's actually like the complete lack of societal support.
Yes.
For what they're going through.
All right, start.
We've just
yeah.
We've just interviewed somebody about this, a woman who transitioned her child and regretted it, and we'll be putting that out very shortly.
Okay. Well, I did an interview with Chloe Cole.
I saw that,
who had transitioned and regretted it. Yeah,
and I think
well,
that's,
look,
that's what's going to
Constantine.
happen.
Well, at the beginning of Genesis, when God creates human beings, He does say, "Well, people are
Yeah, here we go.
made in the image of God." So that's the installation of this divine transcendent value that's part and parcel of, let's say, the eternal soul, right? It's emblematic of the intrinsic dignity and.
So, can anybody like explain to me what the hell is going on here? Can anyone translate that? Because I have no idea what he's talking about right now.
Eternal soul, right? It's emblematic of the intrinsic dignity and importance of each person, regardless of status. But then the second phrase is men and women, He created them, right? The notion that there's this fundamental bifurcation that's built into the structure of reality itself. And you can easily make that into, you can easily make a biological case for that. I mean, sex is, I don't know if there is a conceptual or perceptual category, an orienting category. I don't think there's an orienting category that's more fundamental than male and female.
Okay. I think. Well, this is, I mean, we'll finish it in a second. But when you speak about Jordan Peterson as a fundamentalist, that's like a perfect encapsulation of that. That it's a ordained bifurcation, divine.
Right, like this is some like God-given mandate that this is just the way it is because God said so. Yeah, no, hard pass. Anybody who thinks that like Jordan Peterson is anything but a like theocratic pseudo-intellectual who just because he can speak in verbose rants with big words thinks that he's like smart. I don't know, man. He's nothing more than a theocratic charlatan. That's it. He is right-wing, despite whatever he says. He is absolutely conservative, 100%. And he is a theocrat.
Transcendent values. People make this argument about race too. There's multiple races, so it's not a fundamental bifurcation, right? But it is a trait that has been naturalized by society, much like gender. And when conservatives naturalize things like that, that is the pretext to separations, divisions, and hierarchies.
Right, which is Jordan Peterson's whole thing. I think cis-normal people should be out and let these sort of people sort their... Wait, what? I have no idea what that made. I have no idea what that is.
And what Jordan Peterson does on a daily basis on his program and through whatever, pseudoscience he has been peddling for the past few years, he makes a case for fundamental inequalities by claiming that they are a part of historical and religious archetypes that are static and throughout history and cannot be challenged. And that is what he does with gender. That's what he's been arguing in his desire to, as a thought experiment, return to women being property of men. So rape.
Oh, that was a boy. That was a yikesy freaking clip. That was a yikesy clip. I'm trying to share my time, but as if humans understand theology, let alone the Bible. Yeah, the problem is the problem is that all these religious stuff is nonsense. is nonsense, and it can be viewed however you want. It's subjective because it's not real. That's the problem.
Ape can be prosecuted. It's what he does with his anti-trans stuff, and he's a step away from race science with the same kind of line of thought.
Yeah, I mean, he's like definitely gesturing to the Bible, because a lot of conservatives do this when they want to quibble back and forth between being scientific but not really knowing a lot of science or history. You know, it allows him to set like a standard of, like, oh yeah, like, well, you know, like the Bible says this, so that's a universal that we can all agree to, even though we all don't, you know, we're all not Christians. Just in the history of the world, we haven't been. And it gives him carte blanche to like invent facts about human history that just aren't true. You know, he can like just gesture to certain things like, oh, you know, for as long as humans have been around, they have had male and female. Not true. There have been two genders. Not true. That these are just things that just aren't true. Yeah. Like that there's evidence, and they're widely known to not be true. But in the conservative like pseudoscience sphere, where you want to pretend like you're engaging in real like science and real in-depth history, you just have to have a way to bound the conversation without people going like, okay, but what about native peoples? They didn't have like only two genders. That doesn't make any sense. Like that's just, there's still people don't have only two genders nowadays. It's, you know, it's just deeply intellectually incurious to like first like set your foundation of your thought as the Bible, and then go like, and so we can see that reflected in science. And you're like, no, we can't.
This is just like, this is what the post like Scopes monkey trial reactionary has to do. Like you have to speak to the massive fundamentalist base that is like slurping up your shit. But you also have to give it a scientific or philosophical gloss, because otherwise people will know to laugh you out of it. And yeah.
You really see it a lot in like conspiracy theorists who like think they're a little smarter than the average conspiracy theorist. I haven't brought it up in a while, but flat earthers do this a lot.
Yeah, like essentially, that's exactly, like in a nutshell, it's exactly what I'm describing when I talk about like Jordan Peterson as a pseudo-intellectual charlatan who goes down like these very unnecessarily verbose, incoherent rants to try to sound smart and to try to present gobbledygook as logic, as a logical statement.
Because like if you just cop to believing in God, being anti-trans has a little bit more sense to it, because you're like, oh yeah, I'm just a Christian fundamentalist. I believe in whatever evangelical understanding of the Bible that, you know, have been pumped into my head from, you know, osmosis growing up in America or other parts of the West. And if, you know, that comes into contradiction with the world or whatever, it doesn't matter. When you want to pretend like you believe in science, you have to like pretend like you're engaging with like actual facts, and you know they're not doing that. But you know, in the flat Earth community, like it's way easier to explain the Earth being flat if you just believe in like God,
right? Because you need to have your base, like your base of thought process. If you're some kind of like fundamentalist or like religious person, you need, well, that's the only way it can happen, right? Generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking. Because religion essentially says that you must have this thing called faith. And it kind of trains you to believe in stuff without evidence for said stuff. So you're already primed. So you're already primed for this. Oh, I see what you're saying. I get you now.
But like some people pretend like they don't, and then they just have to keep like, yeah, you know, this is in the Bible. And if you also read like the Quran, it's also like, you know, looking for those sort of cross-cultural mythology connections that like give legitimacy to like a scientific position, because, you know, that's how a lot of people think about the world, but it's not really, you know, it's just anecdotes basically.
Right. I just honestly can't get over how we watch clips of these various right-wingers every single week, you know, the five of us, and then you guys obviously with Sam watch them every day, and I feel like the amount of content coming out from the right obsessed with transgender people is just so unbelievable in the amount that they're putting out. It's like these guys talk more about trans people than any trans person I know talks about trans people. They're obsessed. They're obsessed.
They're acceptable target now. Like the number of acceptable targets in America that don't like get you quote unquote canceled, as in like don't get you to lose your job, is low now. And so trans people have become the most acceptable punching bag, and people need to understand that like they're going to use them as a wedge issue to push forward even more draconian policies that affect not just trans people but everybody. And like that doesn't mean even if they were only affecting trans people, you shouldn't care. But you know, people being willing to like, you know, in this case, relegate the issue to only trans people, but you see it all the time, like ethnicize an issue, like, oh, this is, you know, the pipeline is going through native land, and this is just Native Americans caring about native issues, and then like it poisons everyone's water. You're like, oh, obviously it's not just native people's land that is going to be poisoned, because that's not how it works. You know, you just see people, it's easier to pretend this is an issue that only affects one part of the population up until it starts affecting everybody, and then to wonder how it happened.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Jordan Peterson, it's amazing too how when it's
like what he's essentially arguing is a non-fallacious slippery slope. It's kind of like the same argument that that we were making with regards to like Roe versus Wade, that they're not going to stop at Roe versus Wade, and indeed they didn't. They are not stopping at Roe versus Wade. They're pushing on ahead, full steam ahead, to get rid of that, misoprostol, whatever, abortifacient medication, the pill. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to stop there. There have been movements to restrict or maybe ban birth control. And it's not going to stop there. Death size, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Welcome. It's not going to stop there.
So much of his language is as ambiguous as it possibly could be, and as like purposefully obtuse. And then when it comes to these religious archetypes or the structure of society as he sees fit, it becomes static, unchanging. Don't question it. This is how hierarchy should be. This is a binary. And he still tries to position himself as some sort of thought leader. But do we have like 10 or 15 more seconds of this? Let's play that.
Conceptual or perceptual category, an orienting category. I don't think there's an orienting category that's more fundamental than male and female. I think it's more fundamental than up and down. And
That's
so
a
you blow
freak
that out
statement.
with your Tower of Babel, which is exactly
What
what
about
we're
night
doing
and
right
day?
now, is you blow out everything. And so I do think the T in the LGBT, ETC alphabet panoply, the T is going to be the breaking point. I do believe that.
Gotcha. Well, we know you do.
You're working toward that end. We know you freak.
Yeah. Anyway, that's...
Why isn't this guy in jail? I thought that this entire thing was because he said if he doesn't succumb to the trans people, he's going to be thrown in jail. And instead, it's just the sort of governing body of psychologists as like questioning him. I don't know. I thought maybe he was exaggerating that for effect. No. But I would throw him in jail. I'll throw him in gulag. And the Penguin publishers who had him write the intro to Solzhenitsyn.
First, they're going to deal with the Andrew Sullivan conundrum of forcing him to go down on them, and then they'll move on to arresting Jordan Peterson.
I mean,
that's a good plan.
Sullivan says he has to go down again. I've never gone down in the first place. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put myself in that. It's not manly.
That's
and I'm the expert.
That's an
True. That's a good meme. All right. We've got one more story. John Kerry to stay as Biden's top climate diplomat. Nice meme. John Kerry will stay in his role as President Biden's special climate envoy, at least to this year's UN climate talks set for December in Dubai. Ending speculation that the U.S.'s top climate change diplomat may soon depart. Kerry recently informed Biden of his decision to stay in his post. He told the Boston Globe in a story published on Sunday evening, "There's sufficient unfinished business that I felt like it would be inappropriate to walk away from that at this point." I mean, given that, like, what can only be described as fuck all that has happened in any of these meetings, yeah, okay, whatever, dude. A State Department spokesperson confirmed the news that Kerry will stay on through this COP28 climate meeting, where nations will hold a global stocktake to assess the gap between their progress in combating climate change and the goals of the Paris Agreement to keep temperatures well below 2 degrees. You're shifting the goalposts. No, the Paris climate agreement was 1.5. Okay? You see, more and more we're looking at, like, news and scientists talk about, just keeping it at 2 degrees would be a win. But yeah, this 1.5 deal is it is just not happening. Not in our current not in our current projection trajectory, I should say. Countries will also begin to laying the stakes for climate finance pledges beyond 2025 at the Dubai conference. Kerry's relationship with the Chinese counterpart, Xi Zhenhua, has been a rare bright spot between the U.S. and China. Kerry has sought to carve out a separate lane to discuss climate with China, the world's top emitter. He told the Boston Globe that those talks have been on pause for the past, and was informed that Xi had been ill with COVID-19. The future of natural gas and oil is sure to color the upcoming climate talks amid rising energy costs. Again, in Dubai, but okay, whatever. Energy security concerns stemming from Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the UAE's role as a major hydrocarbon producer. The decision to stay in its current role will also open Kerry up to investigations by the Republican-led House, with Oversight Chair James Comer already requesting documents and communications from Kerry's office. Kerry told the Globe, "We have nothing to hide." Honestly, like, if you want my opinion, I understand you need some kind of diplomat to kind of be a climate envoy. But ideally, you would want the special climate envoy to at least have some kind of understanding or behind the science, and more importantly, to have an understanding of the political will necessary to address the climate crisis. That's the problem I'm having here, because, like, John Kerry doesn't seem to be like the person that should be there to begin with. Hey, Maple Leaf Dragon, how's it going? What did I miss? Well, let's recap. Just to give you a 5-second recap before we head out of here. Another politician since 1982. Yep. So just to recap, John Kerry will remain the special climate envoy. Biden's student loan forgiveness plan is going to the Supreme Court. Ron DeSantis has decided that he got big mad and ended Disney's company town, essentially. Not because it's like the right thing to do, but because he got big mad. Well, yeah, they could always do worse, I suppose. Yeah. That's kind of a given. The Supreme Court is going to hear challenges to the Consumer Financial Protection. So that's in jeopardy. We just went over a video. In shocking news, Jordan Peterson continues to illustrate how much of a pseudo-intellectual charlatan theocrat he is. Surprise, surprise. And in the meme article that we originally started with, Donald Trump big mad that DeSantis is getting a little bit more media attention. It seems like it's slightly more favored, or at the very least, like Fox News is like really trying to push Ron DeSantis, even though he's like 20 points behind Trump. But yeah, that's the big bringing it all circle, bringing it all full circle. All right, folks. Well, we did it. And we did it in a pretty good time, too. Just under 7 o'clock. Thank you for the follow, Wizen Gourmet. Cool. Gourmet? I'm hungry, so I'm gonna go eat. I'm rooting for Disney if they can melt DeSantis' brain as a result. Nah, I mean, like, let's be honest. Disney isn't like a good. Disney isn't the good guy here. I'm just saying that it's I'm questioning DeSantis' motives. Hi, cool name that deserves a follow. I appreciate that. Plus, Disney contributes to my paycheck. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate that. Folks, if you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button, as a few of you have already done today. You get 6 free emotes. 2 of them are cat emotes. Okay? So you can add them to your cat collection. Make sure that you join us Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We do the news, we do the politics. Also, if you want to support the channel in non-monetary ways, you can take a step further and head on over to the YouTube channel, as 219 of you have done, and hit the subscribe button. It really does help us out. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Michael Hassler, for being in the chat and always watching. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you to all the new followers. Thank you to the biddies. Thank you so much, Alio, with the biddies and the tier 1 sub. I appreciate that. You guys are what makes this channel grow. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. The support has been awesome. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya. All right, folks, hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.